In this video, we explore the controversial policies enacted during the Trump administration that have dramatically reshaped America's approach to public lands and environmental protections. From the aggressive increase in oil and gas leasing to the reduction of vital national monuments, these decisions have sparked significant public backlash and legal challenges. We'll delve into the implications of drilling plans in sensitive areas like the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and the expansion of offshore drilling, all while examining how these actions affect wildlife and contribute to the ongoing climate crisis. Join us as we uncover the multifaceted impact of these policy shifts on our natural heritage. 1. Increased oil and gas leasing. The Trump administration embarked on a significant expansion of oil and gas leasing, allocating more than 24.4 million acres of public lands to the industry. This decision marked an unprecedented shift in policy, opening up areas that had been previously shielded from such developments. The vast swaths of land now available for leasing represent a fundamental change in how public lands are managed, favoring energy extraction over conservation. This move was seen as a boon for the oil and gas sectors, eager to tap into new resources. However, it also raised concerns among environmentalists and conservationists about the potential impacts on ecosystems and wildlife. The decision underscored a broader trend of prioritizing economic gains over environmental protection. 2. Reduction of national monuments. In a controversial move, President Trump significantly reduced the size of Bears Ears National Monument by 85% in 2017. This reduction exposed these lands to potential development and extraction, sparking outrage among environmentalists and indigenous communities. Bears Ears, known for its rich cultural heritage and biodiversity, was originally designated to protect significant archaeological and natural resources. The decision to shrink its boundaries was seen as a direct attack on the preservation of American history and natural beauty. This action set a precedent for other national monuments, highlighting the administration's willingness to alter protected areas for economic interests. The reduction of Bears Ears symbolized a shift towards prioritizing resource extraction over cultural and environmental conservation. 3. Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, ANWR, drilling plans. The Trump administration finalized plans to lease the coastal plain of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, ANWR, for oil and gas development. This decision threatened critical habitats for species such as polar bears and the porcupine caribou herd. ANWR, one of the last untouched wilderness areas in the United States, had long been a battleground between conservationists and industry advocates. The leasing plans were seen as a victory for the latter, opening the door for potential drilling in this pristine environment. The move raised alarm among environmental groups, concerned about the impact on fragile ecosystems and the species that depend on them. The decision to pursue drilling in ANWR illustrated a broader pattern of prioritizing energy development over wildlife protection. 4. Offshore drilling expansion. Efforts were made to open nearly all U.S. coastal waters to offshore drilling, including areas in the Arctic and Atlantic Oceans that were previously protected. This expansion was part of a broader strategy to increase domestic energy production, aligning with the administration's energy dominance agenda. The proposal to open these waters to drilling faced significant opposition from coastal communities, environmental groups, and some state governments. Concerns centered around the potential for oil spills, which could devastate marine ecosystems and local economies reliant on tourism and fishing. Despite the backlash, the administration pushed forward, emphasizing the economic benefits of increased oil and gas production. The expansion of offshore drilling highlighted the administration's commitment to prioritizing fossil fuel development over environmental considerations. 5. Environmental regulation rollbacks. The administration rolled back numerous environmental regulations to expedite energy projects, often reducing protections for wildlife and natural habitats. These rollbacks were aimed at streamlining the permitting process for energy development, removing what were seen as burdensome regulations. Critics argued that these changes compromised environmental standards and put vulnerable ecosystems at risk. The rollbacks affected a wide range of protections, from air and water quality regulations to endangered species safeguards. The administration's approach was to promote economic growth and energy independence, but it faced criticism for undermining decades of environmental progress. The rollback of regulations reflected a broader trend of prioritizing industry interests over ecological stewardship. 6. Appointment of industry-friendly officials. Key positions within the Trump administration were filled by individuals with strong ties to the fossil fuel industry. These appointments influenced policies in favor of increased drilling and reduced environmental oversight. Critics argued that these officials prioritized industry interests over public and environmental health. The presence of industry-friendly figures in key roles raised concerns about conflicts of interest and the potential for regulatory capture. These appointments were seen as part of a broader strategy to dismantle environmental protections and promote fossil fuel development. The influence of these officials highlighted the administration's commitment to aligning with industry priorities, often at the expense of environmental considerations. 7. Legal challenges and public opposition. Many of the administration's actions faced legal challenges from environmental groups and opposition from indigenous communities. These groups raised concerns about the potential impacts on sacred and ecologically sensitive lands. The legal battles underscored the contentious nature of the administration's policies and the deep divisions they created. Indigenous communities, in particular, voiced strong opposition, emphasizing the cultural and spiritual significance of the lands in question. The legal challenges highlighted the tension between development interests and the protection of cultural and environmental values. The opposition to these policies reflected a broader societal debate about the balance between economic growth and environmental stewardship. 8. Impact on wildlife. The push for development in protected areas threatened the habitats of numerous species, including endangered and threatened species like polar bears in the Arctic Refuge. These species rely on intact ecosystems for their survival, and the potential for habitat disruption raised significant concerns. Conservationists argued that the administration's policies jeopardized biodiversity and the health of ecosystems. The impact on wildlife was a central point of contention, with critics highlighting the long-term consequences for species survival. The threat to wildlife underscored the broader implications of prioritizing resource extraction over ecological preservation. The administration's actions raised questions about the sustainability of such development practices. 9. Climate change concerns. Expanding fossil fuel extraction on public lands contributed to increased greenhouse gas emissions, exacerbating concerns about climate change and its global impacts. The administration's focus on energy development was seen as contradictory to efforts to combat climate change. Critics argued that the reliance on fossil fuels undermined progress towards reducing carbon emissions and transitioning to renewable energy sources. The potential for increased emissions raised alarm among environmentalists, concerned about the long-term implications for the planet. The administration's approach to fossil fuel development highlighted a disconnect between short-term economic gains and long-term environmental sustainability. The climate change concerns underscored the need for a balanced approach to energy policy. 10. Public lands policy shift. These actions represented a significant shift in U.S. public lands policy, prioritizing energy development over conservation and recreation. The traditional balance of land use was altered, with a greater emphasis on resource extraction. This shift was seen as a departure from previous administrations' focus on preserving public lands for future generations. The policy changes raised questions about the long-term implications for the management and preservation of public lands. The prioritization of energy development over conservation reflected a broader trend of valuing economic interests over environmental and recreational considerations. The public lands policy shift highlighted the administration's commitment to promoting energy independence, often at the expense of ecological and cultural values.